This right here, that is present right here, is not what you think it is. What it is completely unthinkable. But fortunately, what it is completely obvious. It's not hidden. It's not behind anything. It's not masked by anything other than its own strangeness and its own bizarre nature. Unfortunately, it's very easy to think that it is the way you think it is and to ignore evidence to the contrary. And this is the sole condition that creates spiritual problems, in fact creates any problem whatsoever, is thinking you know what something is and then dealing with it as if it was that you think you know. What everything actually is completely unthinkable, entirely. There's no way to get your head around what is actually happening here, and on any aspect whatsoever. And this fact is directly discoverable because, again, the nature of this is not hidden, it's not concealed. But it is so radically unlike any preconceptions that we may have been educated into or brainwashed into in terms of consensus reality and so on and so forth, that may seem to be a significant impediment in terms of being able to let go of these preconceptions and let oneself access this actuality in its strangeness and its amazingness. But this, it's actually fairly easy to do. Reality is completely easy to access because you've always been doing just that. It's not hidden, it's not concealed at all. It's completely available, completely obvious, completely out in the open. But again, unreality is hard to let go of. It's hard to let go of our typically unconscious orientation to what we're used to thinking things are, what we're used to thinking we are, what we're used to thinking our lives are, all these sorts of things. None of which are accurate, none of which are true, because the actual condition is completely unthinkable. It's really a very simple condition. It's a very simple conundrum. In terms of how to do it, of course, it's really fairly simple. Even if you are very unconsciously entrenched in approaching the reality of your experience in various terms or in various ways, you're holding it to be various things, which most people are. Even if that's true, there will be portions of your experience that you don't particularly have a handle on, that you don't particularly know much about, that are relatively neutral in terms of your view of things. And if you direct your attention to these portions of your experience, it's much easier to be with what's actually there than directing your attention to where it may ordinarily go, to your customary obsessions and imaginary conditions that you hold to be urgent or important. For example, something that is not particularly interesting, looking at grains of dirt on the floor, or looking at a cloud in the sky, or listening to wind rustle the leaves of a tree, or something like that, that is something that is actual and evident and present within your experience, but it's not something that you have a lot of investment in. It's not something that you most likely, it's something that you have, invested a lot of thought or importance or urgency in. And so these relatively thin veneers of interpretation are much more transparent. And so the astounding openness and the astounding multidimensionality of the actual experiential qualities that are present can be much more easily noticed, much more easily accessible, even if one, in this context, even if one is, more or less typically entrenched in a worldview. Unfortunately, this builds on itself, it feeds on itself. So once you begin to scratch the surface of letting yourself directly access the astounding quality of experience outside the context of your frame of reference, of interpretations, once you begin to do this, it builds on itself and you'll be able to do it easier, better, it becomes attractive, you become drawn to it, it seduces you into it. So it's not something that you need to maintain with effort or struggle or dutifulness or anything like that. On the contrary, it becomes a great joy and a great, very amusing and entertaining, and at the same time incredibly enriching and fulfilling. Just once you scratch the surface of this, and it builds on itself and pulls you into itself deeper and deeper. So that's our basic scenario. That's the problem and the solution.
You talk about it's more than you can think, but actually thinking is the wrong language.
Right.
It's like you can't describe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like the nerve firings in your brain. You know they're there, but you can't feel them, and you're not aware of the actual synapses firing. But you know that they're there, and they're always there. But your experience doesn't cover that, and thinking doesn't cover this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the what thinking pretends to be is a fundamentally an abstraction. Thought pretends to be about something. So when you think about something, you're essentially modeling. You're essentially creating an imaginary model of something, and the whole argument of thought is that model has some degree of accuracy, and in actual fact, it doesn't. It can't, because what is being modeled, the actual condition that any and all objects consist of, or any and all actual conditions consist of, is not linear enough or coherent enough or simplistic enough to be able to be captured in a model, in a symbol, in a map. It's just too dynamic, complex, multidimensional.
Off the charts.
Yeah, it's off the charts, poetically speaking. So thought, it's like if someone gave you three bowling balls and said, using only these bowling balls, describe the mechanism of global economics and political situation over the last 1,000 years. It's like, here's these three bowling balls. Like, it's just not going to work. It's apples and oranges. There's no way you can get an intelligent or meaningful correlation. Then thought is like that. No matter how large your vocabulary, no matter how extensive your dictionary or your Wikipedia that you're drawing on, it's a mere smidgen against the depth and dynamism and multidimensionality of any aspect of this actuality. But you see, that's fortunately that doesn't matter at all, because this doesn't need to be captured in thought, and in fact, it never has been captured in thought. No one has ever captured it in thought. We may be used to pretending our thoughts are about something actual, but they never have been. And yet that doesn't hamper us because our functioning is not dependent upon thought. Our functioning is direct energy engagement, which is itself multidimensional. Because the way we function, the energies that arise in us as our motivations and our capabilities are completely irrational, transcendental, multidimensional, mysteries, and they meet the conditions that they need to meet, and the whole thing, as a gestalt, unfolds the way it does, which we may call functioning. And I may say, I'm reaching my hand over and picking up a cup of chai and taking a sip. It's like as if that oversimplification of the group of 7 words or whatever can capture what is going on here. It's absurd. It's totally absurd. And it's very evident to see that, again, when you just scratch the surface of noticing the slipperiness and amazingness and multidimensionality of actual experience, of actual experiential qualities.
Well, there's the knowing of that, knowing that that's true, but then you're up against the amazing power of patterns, of avoiding that and going directly into an incredible, mesmerizing energy of mind.
Exactly so.
So there seems to be like there has to be a kind of either a dismantling of that if it's not seen, if the seeing through it doesn't dissipate it, or some monitoring to remind one that the patterning has taken over and that shouldn't be the case.
Sure. But fortunately, it turns out that, well, first I'll say what it turns out, and then I'll say how you do that. It turns out that thinking mind is not actually a problem because it's a relatively small event in the vastness of the field of experience. Even though that may not be apparent, if as you say, in a condition when you're addicted to it and drawn to it and find yourself, unable to escape from it, like a fly from flypaper or something. But when one begins just to flirt with being with one's experience outside that context, as I suggested earlier, when you just flirt a little bit with being with experience, and when you get a little bit of a spark there, when you notice, wow, there's something really amazing here, ultimately that is empowering. And yes, it's certainly true that there are aspects of it there are certain phases of this process that can look like struggling with your mind, or can look like trying to remember, I'm getting sucked into my thoughts again, there I go, and that kind of thing. But that's not really the lion's share of it, and that's not the bulk of it, and that's not what does the work. What does the work is simply the contact. Because the power of direct noticing, the power of being with experience outside of an interpretive framework, is profoundly transforming. Because, again, experience is not inert. Experience is made of pure intelligence. So, You're like plugging, anytime you're with direct experience, you're like plugging into a mainframe and getting a download.
That's very clear. And that happens, and it's experiential, and it's very real, it's very clear.
Yeah.
And then it disappears.
Yeah, sure.
As if it never happened. And then it's like this other takes over with the same intensity and dimension and
yeah, it can seem to do that. But again, when you have the wherewithal in 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 months or 5 years, you do it again. You flirt with it again. You look at a sunset or you see something amazing or beautiful, or you just, glance at a patch of color and just go, wow. And in that nakedness, in that just being with a naked presence of experience, again, that download happens. And it is empowering, it is cumulative. And in the long run, and granted, it can look like a very long run, perhaps, depending on your particular situation, it wins.
Well, there's different energies involved in it. It happens on its own, and it opens up with its own power and its own energy happening. Or it can be accessed through a mental remembering of how to break through.
Sure.
Like, okay, you can't know what this is. That which knows you can't know what is. Also, you can't know what that is.
Sure.
So that breaks that. But that's a kind of, that's like a crowbar effect.
Yeah.
Of dismantling.
Whatever it seems to be, but it's not actually dismantling anything.
Well,
it's going around something.
Yeah.
It's like I say, oh my gosh, there's a cushion in front of me. What am I going to do? I'm stuck here. We can't go anywhere. I'm screwed. There's a cushion in front of me. It's like, well, and if I poke around and prod, I might notice that I can go around. The cushion's still there, but it's not blocking me. And the same with mind, because mind and conceptual thought is actually a very small event within the experiential field. It is. It just plain is. And that may not seem to be the case for someone that's totally addicted to mind, but it is in fact the case even for someone that's totally addicted to mind. And this fact is discovered when one begins to access direct experience outside of that context. And outside that context is not an either-or. It's not mutually exclusive. It doesn't mean you need to shut down thought to get outside. You can be thinking and caught up in stuff and still just a little wow, a little aha, a little anything. And, it's like multitasking. Thought's here, but there's this other thing over here. And the more you sensitize yourself, which happens just by prolonged, repeated exposure, the more you sensitize yourself to this other way of being, of direct experiential presence, let's call it, the more you notice that how ubiquitous it is and how everything is that and how vast and multidimensional that is and how relatively small mind is. But, that doesn't mean that it's easy. But you see, even as you say it has to be done, or it can be done deliberately or consciously or something like that, even that's not really true, because deliberate and conscious aren't really deliberate and conscious. Deliberation is not what you think it is. Thinking is not what you think it is. It's all essentially a mysterious transcendental energy phenomenon.
Well, it's doing it.
It's doing it, yeah. It does it anyway. So even if you're doing it, it's doing that.
I know.
And yet it looks the way it looks. It does what it does. It goes the way it goes, seemingly. And that's that.
We tend to think that's a problem. The issue is that if it's deliberate or conscious, it's framed in words.
Right.
And again, that's the wrong language.
Yeah. And even if it is framed in words, what is actually there is completely vast. It's like if I put my finger in the Mississippi River, I say, the Mississippi River is framed by my finger. It's like, get some proportion there. Even if thought is present and interpretation is present, it's really a small event in this torrent of a field of vision, the torrent of the field of sound, field of sensation, field of emotion, all these subtle vibes and amazing energies that are continually coursing through the field of experience, that none of which are thoughts, none of which are ideas, none of which you have a handle on. They're all spontaneously occurring. And so if you're thinking and obsessing and sitting here thinking and doing that, that is a little tiny cork. It's bobbing on this vast tidal wave, and the cork is actually made of water, so it's not even anything separate. Because again, thought isn't really thought. Thought pretends to be thought, but thought is really transcendental energy, like everything is.
It's a seduction of it.
Yeah, it is a seduction. But the other is also a seduction, and the trick is to transfer your addiction.
It's it's like a pleasure level.
Yeah.
Where you want to go.
Yes, it is. And if you find more pleasure in thought and obsession, you're welcome to be there. And in fact, there's no downside. Because in fact, there's, objectively, that's not any worse than any place else to be in this transcendental nature. I mean, and when we're engaged in spirituality and trying to break out of our bondage and all this stuff, we paint this thought and ideas as the enemy or the challenge or the trap, the prison, and that we're trying to get out of. And strategically, it may actually seem to be that in that context. But ultimately, it's not in the least, because thought is transcendental radiant presence, just like non-thought is transcendental radiant presence. And it doesn't matter where you are, how you are with the radiant presence, it is that. It never is not that, it's never less than that. But you can't know that or appreciate it until you see it directly. And then it verifies that, which is what liberation consists of. But it is discoverable that that's the case, and the technique of discovering it is being with direct experiential presence outside the context of an interpretive framework. And that again, it's important to distinguish. It doesn't mean you're shutting down the experiential, you're shutting down the interpretive framework and you're getting over here. Even if there's an interpretive framework going on, you just reach around. You look through the cracks. You reach over. Because interpretive framework doesn't actually block anything. It's not a wall. It's not an opaque wall. It's not a cell. It's not a jail cell. It's a gossamer. It's a very delicate gossamer web made out of transcendental energy. So it's not actually very impeding. And mind you, it can seem to be. It can seem to be so addictive. And the reason it's so seductive is because the radiance is seductive. But if you're addicted to only that mode of it, then it seems like you're stuck in that. You keep going back to it, and you can't go anywhere else, but you go to that. And it's just a kind of a retraining exercise or a resensitizing exercise to notice that discover that there's alternatives and that they're pretty cool too. And just that very fact just recalibrates your sense of proportion, your sense of perspective on this whole field.
We just heard a talk recently where they were doing experiments with other creatures and could probe their pleasure center and would stimulate that to the point where they would keep going back to this stimulation to the point where they didn't eat. They just wanted
It died happy.
Except for, was it dolphins?
Dolphins. Dolphins took time off to eat.
They realized that they better eat or it's just like
Take 5, eat.
Yeah. But they go back to that. So So there is that pleasure center of the self
Sure, absolutely.
that I think most people stay in.
Well, everyone's always in a pleasure center. It's a question of broadening your palate. You know, everyone's obsession is ultimately a pleasure center. Even if they think they're stuck and their life is hell and they're
They're
horrible, they're digging that, or they wouldn't stay there.
Yeah.
You know, and it may seem perverse, but it's the case. And so it's like a little kid, you know. You taste anything other than sweets or whatever, and you go, I don't like that, you know. But eventually, if you mature and you check things out, and you go through a process, and you taste this and you taste that, and you develop a little bit more worldly experience, your palate might broaden, and you might be able to enjoy more things than just the sweet or whatever. You can still go back to sweet whenever you want. That hasn't gone anywhere. But you have alternatives that have their own kind of pleasure. And so likewise, it's a matter of broadening one's palate and discovering the incredible depth and beauty that's available in other kinds of experience, in other, let's call them seeming aspects of experiential possibility.
I just had this really cool thing happen the other day. It's like, because I'm always, or in the past, would struggle with the voice, and I'm trying to quiet it. And now it's just like, oh, it's over there, and then there's just this,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool. I think I'll just let the, and it comes on, and it's actually kind of entertaining.
Yeah.
If you can watch it.
Sure.
It's really interesting. Yeah. To make it your friend, or make it, well, it's not even a friend, just...
Well, you know, we get these dualistic fixations in our imagination where this is the problem and not, so therefore not this is the solution. So then we're like playing this constant tug of war in our imagination with ourselves. And when you just let go of that whole thing, you know, it's like cutting the rope. You have a tug of war, you know, you just cut the rope and it's like all the energy's just gone. And then like what? So there's this side and there's that side and there they are, and so what, you know?
It was, yeah, it's really bizarre how easy it is when you experience it.
Yeah. And simple, direct experience solves a conundrum automatically, without any effort or conundrum or logic or struggle or training or anything, you know. I mean, it just undercuts it. It bypasses it altogether. It just reveals it as irrelevant, which takes the steam out of it. It's like popping a balloon or something, you know. Yeah.
Well, Peter, I really struggle your message that simply noticing a radiant that is sufficient. Maybe, I don't know, I'm beginning to think that I'm deluding myself that I can really follow. And I don't only do what you suggest. I do other things.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I would have a somewhat chance until hearing you even minuscule amount. I do other supportive things that I've that have suggested to me over the years. You know, people have different. They're burdened with different karma.
Of course.
And you know, I actually begin to think that I'm not qualified for this time, that I need massive amounts of purification and formal retreat and maybe lifetimes of work before I can even really begin to have any stable noticing, as you put it. I've been 2 years ago. I've struggled with certain things that have been very burdensome. Very that I've been told by a couple of people that and Ramdas told me in 1984 that my life may have been preordained in some karmic sense that I would be stuck in a certain way. I won't go into the graphic details, but and I've intuited things along that line. But 2 years ago I thought, well, before the end of the life comes and it'll be completely too late to even make the slightest gesture for Dharma, I went to your meeting in Berkeley, as always, very inspiring. I thought this is an opportunity to be with someone who really seems to understand and is accessible and communicates very directly. So I thought I'll give it my best shot. It's coming up in 2 years. And, this seems to be a process of clearing or whatever. But I have no stable noticing. I'm not truly at peace. I'm in, deep in my heart, I'm in conflict. And most of the time, I still feel like I'm groping in the dark. Like there's no real light. And they say a fish in water doesn't know that it's wet because it only knows water. It has no reference. So I come here, last week I saw the Dalai Lama in Berkeley, and I get that rasa, that flavor of space, but it has no staying power. I just wonder if, obviously nothing is set in stone because nothing is ultimately fixed and independent, but I have to wonder if maybe the relative forces that are within my mind stream are just so overwhelming that no progress is possible in this lifetime.
Well, you have to be with things at your capacity of inspiration, at your capacity of navigation. So, and that's good. That's very good for the buck stops there. So you have to call the shots on where you're going and what you're doing and all that. I mean, leaving aside for now issues of what that actually consists of and whether it's actually happening or blah blah blah. But nonetheless, it's good for you to be in integrity with how you're being with your life, and to not give yourself over to any external authority. I mean, certainly there's nothing wrong with checking things out and taking provisional advice, but ultimately you have to decide what possibilities to be considering and what possibilities you want to reject or set aside, and so on and so forth. So in other words, you have to apply the own litmus test of your own inspiration in terms of deciding how you want to do things. My whole approach, as you no doubt have heard many times and certainly have assimilated to the extent you have, is that karmic stuckness, karmic limitation is made of completely unlimited, completely transcendental radiance. And so liberation does not come from fixing karmic stuckness or even addressing it whatsoever, but simply discovering what it is. Rather than transforming it or fixing it or working around it or getting through it or getting over it, simply seeing what it is actually can free you from it. Analogously to, you may be in a terrible situation and be having troubles and all that, and then you have, all of a sudden you have a flash of inspiration. Oh, I'm asleep, this is a dream. And then when you see it's a dream, all the problems are solved without solving them. And they're solved without making them go away necessarily. They're just solved because it turns out they're not actually problems. The apparent problems are made of a fundamental condition, which is in itself entirely non-problematic. And that's exactly analogous to what's going on here. And so all karmic conditions are patterns of transcendental light, essentially.
Ultimately, I have great faith in that, but nonetheless, I can't whitewash away the reality of what I perceive.
Oh, no, certainly not.
In any given moment, and that reality just tends to have. It's familiar. It has certain tonalities to it,
Mm-hmm.
There's different ways that I can approach it. One would be to just keep doing what I'm doing, which is sort of I'm not really in retreat, but I'm pretty much generally keeping myself. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to the radio that much. I've taken certain vows, or committed to guarding my mind and my speech and my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, the different medicine is people with really painful patterns may need very intensive medicine. I've been grappling with that thought of where to go for some time.
Mm-hmm.
I was hesitant to go to a Dharma center because it would be an unknown. I feel that you really help me. Even though I don't hear you profoundly, it's just like a fraction of 1%. It's still that little bit of light does come through. And plus, I've always been very patient, very supportive. I have great respect for the Dalai Lama. My chances of getting an audience from the Dalai Lama are astronomically very slim. A lot of these teachers, you have to wait. It took me 2 months to sleep on the cushion for a half hour last year. There's all of that.
Well, but again, you've heard teachings. You've heard teachings from many different points of view. You've heard them in person. You've read books. You're informed, and so it's up to you. Like I've said, it's your integrity of giving it your best shot of what are you going to do with it. How do you want to be with this. How you think you're capable of being with us, whatever. And that's as it should be. Everyone is in exactly the same position. And it turns out to be fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you being you. There's nothing wrong with you doing what you do the way you do what you do. In fact, it's essential. That is your path. Your path is you. Your path is your karma. Your path is your decisions and your, what you're drawn to and so on and so forth. And that's all very, very good.
There are those who would say that one Western Dzogchen guy back east that I spoke to on the phone, he told me that I'm wasting my time, that I need to have a formal commitment to a traditional teacher. Anything else would be a waste of time. I've heard different things.
Yeah, you ask somebody and you're going to get a different bit of advice, and they're not going to particularly agree with anyone else's advice. But that's why I say, you have to use your own best genius. You have to use your own best inspiration as your compass.
I think maybe, okay, I'm arrogant to think that I can navigate my way through this. Like Trungpa said, the spiritual teacher is absolutely necessary because I tried to perform surgery on myself. You need somebody who has reference outside of your own button. In Vajrayana, the essentialness of the guru is never dismissed. That other traditions like Vipassana more of a practice than a teacher. But
sure. Well, but again, this is, this is great. You just, have at it. Do it your way, whatever your way is. That's great. And if you feel like if this is a waste of time for you looking in this kind of stuff that we do here, then that's certainly fine. Of course, it's totally appropriate. The ball's in your court. But it always is in your court, so it's nothing new there. And you just, you live your life and play the game of you in accordance with your best inspiration.
Now, this time one has had a spiritual practice and not however far, and then that got broken. The continuity is broken. How can that be repaired?
It doesn't need to be repaired. There's nothing to be broken. The actual continuity cannot be broken. The continuity of being cannot be broken, and that's the only actual continuity there is. All these other continuities are just games. They're pretense. And they're unimportant in themselves, ultimately. If you want to play those kinds of games, if you want to, indulge in those kinds of more constructed, patterns or sort of sets of rules to approach things by, that's absolutely fine. But continuity cannot be broken.
The continuity I was referring to is the momentum of turning attention toward the radiance.
Yeah, but you don't need to. The radiance turns its own attention to itself continually. Right now, your attention is completely on the radiance. All of this is the radiance. Everything you're concerned with is the radiance. Your karma is your radiance. Your stuckness and challenges are the radiance. And you give them full attention all the time.
There's the attention that is, let's say, the patterns of conditioning that just perpetuate itself, and then there's the space which is the conflict, in which
sure.
there's no longer any glue that's binding.
Sure. And that always coexists. Everything, all phenomena, all apparent phenomena happen within the space that they happen within, which is not is not exactly the phenomena itself. And this is always the case. The space is never gone. And the phenomena never persist. They're just these strange phenomena. It's like clouds in the sky, all the metaphors. It's like clouds in the skies, and the sky's there, and they come and go, and they're all weird, and then they're gone, and never going to repeat. This is the continual condition, and it cannot be broken. It will never be broken. It exists beyond space and time. This is beyond space and time. And the show will go on forever. But there's no solving it. There's no solution to it. But it's not a problem. And you can approach it like a problem, and it's totally possible to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It can be a very entertaining and engrossing way being with this is to, be engaged with it in terms of challenges and problems and looking for solutions and striving to improve and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, because that's just another mode of the radiance. And the radiance doesn't gain or lose anything by that. Nothing, being with it, you can be with it any way you want, and you don't gain any or lose anything by being with it one way or another way. You really don't. So it's absolutely fine to approach it in terms of, being methodical and committing to samayas and doing, extended practices. As you want, if that's the way that you feel drawn to being with this, that's absolutely fine. Because nothing is either gained or lost by doing that, and nothing was gained or lost by not doing that. So it's an absolute moot point. It's really just a matter of your own personal inclination.
See, I wanted to, I had a discussion with a very nice fellow, very who's out here in September. I did the Joshua Tree Retreat, Fred, if you remember Fred.
Oh yeah, sure.
And he's actually a full Dzogchen student.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, and I shared some of this with him on the phone last week. And he said, what you're communicating, or Dzogchen is communicating, that ultimately the paramitas, all of the traditional virtuous dispositions and stuff that are cultivated, ultimately those are overlays or fabrications on radiance.
Yeah, exactly.
That what you're pointing to is completely outside the field of sin or virtue.
Absolutely. But sin or virtue don't impact it negatively at all. There's no problem with either. There's no problem with grappling with sin. There's no problem with striving for virtue, because that's a radiance too. But you don't need to, because you don't actually gain anything by it either. See, the fantasy, the delusion is that you gain anything by it.
Well, the conventional view, let's say in traditional Buddhism, is that sin or negative karma obscures the mind.
Right, I understand that. But, that view, holding that view is fine, because that view is the radiance too. But that view is not necessarily true in its own terms. It's just a whole way, you can play poker, or you can play bridge, or you can play canasta, or you can throw the cards down and go for a walk, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it seems
it really doesn't.
These other things are taking, they're new, more subtle or refined conceptual frameworks that are given to loosen the hold of more closed, more binding, and then you let go of those.
Sure.
And you're obviously pointing to just putting it all down.
Yeah. But even letting go of it, you don't gain anything by letting go of it. And you don't lose anything by not letting go of it. But by letting go of it, you discover that fact. So it's very sort of paradoxical. But it's really, really true that you don't gain anything by letting go of it. But you don't lose anything by not letting go of it. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with being with it any way that you find meaningful.
But the recognition of that, of course, is crucial. Otherwise, it would just be a nice philosophy.
Yeah. And the recognition cannot be a result of process. The recognition will always be a result of insight, and you can't contrive insight. But you don't need to contrive insight, because it comes when it comes. So since you can't contrive it, there's no point trying to. And it does come from time to time. From time to time you have insights. I mean, you read Longchenpa and you recognize there's something there. Just being able to recognize there's something there is huge. I mean, that itself is profound insight. Even if it's all, just not clicking, it doesn't matter. Just even knowing, seeing, just feeling the value of that is profound insight. I mean, so don't undersell your own, the potency of your own insight, the potency of your own, radical intuition.
Yeah, even if the intuition is just so just a small little.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just don't worry about it. And again, it's not important because it takes care of itself, and it'll happen when it kicks in when it kicks in. And there's no right or wrong way to live life. There's no right or wrong way to approach spirituality. And one learns by doing. One does one's own version of it. Everyone is a one-off. Everyone does their own path and does their own version of it, even if they're theoretically in a certain tradition or in a certain path or following a certain teacher. They're still doing it their way. It's just very, very superficially, very grossly superficial that they're conforming to anything.
Well, it's just a sense, and now, I'm going to be 56 next month. No one gets any younger. It's always going in the other direction.
Seems to be.
and of course, one reads, traditionally said that being born a human being is not that common, and then even if one is born a human being, to meet up with the true Dharma and to be able to practice and that
Sure.
the conditions very hard to come by, and so it's scary that I could die and then.
But nothing is lost in death, and nothing is gained in life, or vice versa for that matter. A lot of these traditions set up a boogeyman. They're basically fear traditions. They're trying to scare people into towing the line. Oh my God! If I look at how horrible it would be if I don't, whatever. And that's I completely reject that. It's just not. Reality is not actually like that. Nothing. There is no boogeyman. There is no downside. There's no negative condition. There can be apparent negative conditions, but those apparent negative that apparent negative conditions can seem to appear is just a manifestation of the absolute freedom and liberation of the radiance. It can seem to be anything, but it's not bound by what it seems to be. Like when you dream, you can dream of anything, but it's not. There's nothing in a dream. There's nothing there to bind you because it's just a dream.
This framework of a boogeyman, so to speak, it's got to be one's own negative tendency. It's not. From a Buddhist point of view, it's not.
Sure. But by reifying it, even if it's your own negative tendencies, by reifying it as a bad guy that's got you trapped, that's throwing gasoline on that fire, and the internal psychology does that plenty without needing to be supported by external philosophy. In my opinion, I mean, I realize that there are many people that would disagree with me profoundly, and that's their right. I encourage them to do it their way. But I really want to do is stress that it's any way that you're with your reality is absolutely okay, and you can't lose anything. And in fact, whether you realize it or not, you can't actually gain anything. So, just being with it over the course of time is a self-refining process. It refines itself. So whatever you do is your path, and is your spiritual path, and will take you to realization, because there's nowhere else to go. And it doesn't, all of this, these horrifying stories, 100,000 lifetimes of bad karma, or whatever. It's like, hey, it's not 100,000 lifetimes. There's no time in the actual fact, so it doesn't matter. It's all, it's not actually like that. So even if there is 100,000 lifetimes of bad karma, it's like, who cares? So what? It's like same old, same old. I mean, every night you go to sleep, and every night your dreams are gibberish. And oh no, it's going to continue forever. I'm always going to have this gibberish. Yeah, sure. And this is gibberish. What's going on here? Try and make sense of this. And then you go to sleep, it's all gone. Like it never existed. And then you wake up and whatever you're dreaming about's gone, like it never existed. And here you are, as always, same old, same old. So it's really okay to to try things. It's really okay to experiment. And if you feel strongly that whatever it would benefit you to try experimenting and doing things a certain way, then by all means have at it. And I encourage you to do so, because whatever you do is your path. And the more wholeheartedly you engage in it, the more efficient it will be and the more enjoyable it will be.
There's a couple of things that came out of that for me. That one is that Ramdas doesn't know diddly squat about your process. He might tell you that it's going to happen in 5 minutes or in 17 lifetimes.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
First thing. Secondly is that if you go to a Catholic priest, they're going to say to you, the only way you can find God is through whatever it is, communion and baptism and so on and so forth. The same as a
and you're never going to find God anyway, because all you can do is grovel because of original
but
sin.
It's exactly the same thing as a Dzogchen teacher telling you, you have to do this or you have to do that.
Absolutely.
And we tend to buy this
Yeah.
crap.
You get advice in proportion to in accordance with who you ask for it.
Yeah, but
And you ask anyone anything, and they'll tell you what they think. There's 5 billion people in the world. You could ask every one of them advice, and you're going to get 5 billion different answers, and they're going to not agree at all.
But we pick this thing and say, okay, this is my path, and so I will believe this set of beliefs.
Exactly, sure. But
it's fucking rubbish.
It is rubbish, but even so, it's absolutely okay.
Oh, it's absolutely okay.
And that is what the path looks. The path looks like, buying bills of goods until you wise up.
Right, yeah.
The way you become an informed consumer is by not being an informed consumer long enough, and you finally get through your thick head that, oh, wait a minute. Just because this pretty girl is telling me my life's going to be better if I buy such and such a toothpaste, maybe it's not really necessarily true. But hey, go buy the toothpaste. It's all good. It's a challenge. But really, the message I would like to communicate is the absolute okayness, the absolute complete inherent okayness of any way of being with this. So if you want to become a Roman Catholic, have at it. It's all good. If you want to be a fundamentalist Buddhist, have at it. If you want to go become a jihadi or something, have at it. If you want to become a banker and a capitalist asshole, have at it. It's like, who cares? You want nothing will be gained, nothing will be on your deathbed. You'll be on your deathbed anyway. and then the next minute, where's it all gone?
And the other thing is that you're as close to realization now
as you ever will be. Because this is it. When realization occurs, it will be of this, and it is of this now. So.
And if you happen to have killed 1 million flies and built up all this bad karma.
Yeah. If you killed 1 million people.
Yeah, whatever.
Hitler can be realized.
Too late now.
Well, I was struck, Peter, earlier when you were talking first about just the inordinate freedom that is. There's like, irrespective of what words describe anything or what thoughts occur, the experience of being offered freedom, for me to make up my own whatever it is, is that's like really, wow.
Yeah, there's no wrong way to do it. And there's no right way to do it. It just doesn't matter. It does not matter. So whatever you do is just going to be your vehicle for being you. And one vehicle is pretty much as good as another.
It's just splitting hairs.
Yeah.
But it's also that you're not doing it.
Well, sure, of course. And that comes with too. That's always the case too.
But when you say this is it,
Yeah.
and then this is not real,
No, this is real. This is as real as it gets. But it's really what it is. It's really it.
But we don't see clearly what it is.
Sure, you see perfectly clearly what it is. It's just not what you think it is. What you think it is isn't accurate, but your seeing of it is completely accurate.
So when you're noticing, like you say, noticing, I think, aren't you noticing that the unreality of what we think of our patterns?
You may be noticing that, but that is what it is, the way it is, and the unreality of your patterns, as such as it is real. Is a real condition. This is a real condition, and the real condition that it is may diverge radically from the real condition you think it is, but that's real too. That you think it is that way is real. Unreality doesn't exist. How could it? What would it be made of? How could it appear? Everything that appears is real, but everything that appears is nothing but itself. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have any explanation. It doesn't fit into anything else. It's just like a flash.
So I said that I really wanted to ask you something.
Oh, no, sure. How about anything?
When, like, I'm kind of stuck with the noticing, you get to the point where you're noticing, and you mentioned a tug of war going on that interferes with the noticing.
They seem to, but nothing really interferes with it.
And then you sort of, you say you let go of that tug of war. So I just have the sensation that I'm noticing, and that what I'm noticing is just so incredible that I can't figure out, I don't know how to say, it's something so different and so new.
Sure.
That
yeah. Good.
I don't know how to say it. I keep trying to bring myself back to it because
Oh yeah, no, that's a mistake.
It's like a glimpse.
Yeah.
And so I see this glimpse, and then I think, well, I want to see that again because I think that's it.
Yeah. But that's good to want to see it again, but the way to get to see it again is to let go of it. Here's the whole technique of noticing. When you find yourself noticing, hit on it, drink it. But when it starts to drift off, let go. Just completely let go. Whatever happens, go where you go. Don't worry about it. And sooner or later, 5 seconds or 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 months or 5 years, you'll find yourself noticing again. And then drink it, be with it, drink it. But don't cling to it. And after a while, you'll drift, because the very nature of the radiance is a continual drifting. It's continually, nothing is stable. Nothing stays a certain way. It's continually morphing and morphing and morphing, and just all these dimensions and everything. I mean, we all know this is just experience.
In this, I sense this.
But then when it begins to go when you begin to lose it at all, just let go, completely let go, and just go watch TV or call a friend or anything you want.
To want to dive into it, though.
Yeah, well, dive into it when you can.
But I can't because it
goes
like that.
That's okay. But let go of it. And then if you have that urge, notice you're having the urge. And then let go of that. And then just whatever, just go about your business, do whatever you feel drawn to. And sooner or later, and the more you let go of noticing, the more often it'll happen, paradoxically. The more you try and create it or cling to it, you're actually pushing it away.
So you don't need to sort of leave yourself to those circumstances?
No. Let go of it. Let it go. And it will come back.
Thank you.
Let it go and it will come back. Just be real loose and easy and playful with it. And then when it's there, trip on it. When it's there, really just like drink on it and go, wow. And then you'll start to drift off or lose it or whatever. Just let it go right there. No lingering clinging. Yeah, excellent. No lingering clinging, just let it go. And wherever you go to, just go there. And that loose and easiness is the very essence of what noticing is. So the more you let yourself be loose and easy with the noticing, the more you'll be in its own mode, and the more spontaneously it will happen.
The letting go is difficult. Not difficult, but it's almost like you have to train yourself to remember to let
Well,
go.
just trust that it'll come back. You're not going to lose it. It's like when you have it's like when you see a beautiful sunset. You know, when you see a beautiful sunset, it's in the sunset. And it's no longer a beautiful sunset. It's night, right? It's not like, you can sit there and say, oh no, this is terrible. The sunset's over terrible. It's so beautiful. I loved it. I wish I was sticking around. Or you can say, oh, cool. That was really nice. God, I hope there's going to be another one sometime. And then you go about your business, and it's nighttime, and you do your nighttime stuff. So you trust its value, that it's not going anywhere. It is where it is, and it will show up from time to time. And in that ease, it will actually show up more and more often. As you trust it, you're letting yourself tune into its value, its profundity. When you're clinging to it, you're second guessing it. You're sort of thinking that you have to. It's not. It's power. You're actually diminishing it by trying to cling to it. It's miraculous. It's got power. It doesn't need your. Doesn't need you bolstering it up. and you feel it, when you just don't think of it as letting go of it versus clinging to it. Just think of it as just be easy. Just be easy. Flow. Go with the flow. When things come, it's when it's sunny, it's nice. It's sunny, you go out in the sun. When it's not sunny, well, you get an umbrella or stay in, whatever raincoat. It's easy. You just flow with the flow. Just be with things as they come up. And in that looseness, the noticing will actually, maybe paradoxically, come more often, more regularly. Because that looseness is the very essence of noticing. This is absolutely loose and spontaneous. This is completely doing itself all the time. What could be looser? It doesn't need me to do it. It doesn't need me to hold it here. I better hold the present moment here, or it's going to go away. It's like, yeah, it's very powerful. It's the power. It's all power. It's the real power. I mean, this is we're talking in capital letters, underlined, etc., etc., etc.
Peter, in 1980, maybe the same, or something. In 1980, I'd done a Buddhist retreat, and I was very idealistic. I was trying to find community to live at for however long. I had a car. I traveled different places. And I went to a place in Tennessee called the Farm.
Oh yeah, sure. I know about the farm. I know people who were farmers.
Steve Gask.
That's right. I wound up spending about 10 days here, it's a week and a half. And it was very nice, but I didn't feel it was a perfect match. But anyway, the last night that I spent here, I went to they had a social. And there was this young woman that I was attracted to, but I could tell it wasn't two ways. I walked back to the guest house where I was staying, and I was very down. I felt really very depressed. And it was this January of 1980, and it was crystal clear, full night. And I looked up, as I was walking back to the guest house, I looked up at the sky, and a wonderful thing happened. The stars, rather than seeming like they were out there, I had a sense that they were inside of me, not me as a person, but I just felt so completely at home in the universe. A sense of outside and inside. It was all momentarily.
That's available. It can happen. It's like we were talking about. This. This is part of the part, from my point of view, strategically, it's part of the downside of a more systematic spirituality is that you're sort of chasing something, and it turns out that the nature of what this is, you find it most easily when you're not chasing it. You find it most easily when you're being loose and easy, and then it comes to you. So, I mean, that's not like a rule or a law or anything. It's just an observation that seems to be the case.
It seems, at least my sense, is that to the extent that I'm not truly hallucinating, not sensing the radiance, there's going to be a discontent that will be driving a...
Sure. Yeah, but you see, here's the trick. This is very subtle maybe, but it's very profound. It's possible to be loose and easy with the fact that you're not loose and easy. So you may be really grasping and holding on and oriented to things, but you can look at yourself and say, that's what I am. I'm not doing that on purpose. It's just, isn't that funny? What a weird guy I am. And all of a sudden there, even though you are not being loose and easy, it's in a context of loose and ease, which is all you need. I mean, that's all you need. So you get to that ease without even needing to be easy. It's not like you need to correct some lack of easiness, but you can be easy about the fact that you can't let go. I mean, it may be subtle, but it's a really powerful yogic mudra.
Sure.
To put yourself in that orientation of, things are horrible, and what can I do? It's easy. It's all, hey, who cares? It's all good. It's all weird.
Lately, I mean, I've been perhaps framing that gesture with the attitude of, this is so over the top wild, and I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to let it be. This ideal lazy man's guide to enlightenment, really, that's what, and this too can be extended to the fully, or it can be experienced with a fully expanded mind. Something like that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can,
Just letting it be, just letting it be.
Yeah. It's not even a letting it be as a releasing of it, as so much as that it's real, it's true, it's really like that, and it's ultimately okay that it's really like that. It may not be what I want, but but the fact that it's not what I want, it's really like that, and that's okay too because it's real, and you keep stepping back into, that's how it is, and. Yeah, that's real, and I don't like that. That's how it is, and that's real, and in that realness, there's a space. There's a I mean, I could say detachment, but it's not a contrived detachment or a separation. It's just it's a kind of a releasing it. You're not pushing and pulling on it anymore, and even if there's pushing and pulling, you're not pushing and pulling on the pushing and pulling.
Pushing and pulling are there's infinite number of variations or nuances of pushing and pulling.
Yeah.
And so any of it is just what's happening. That's don't have to fight it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you do fight it, you don't have to.
Fight.
Yeah, exactly.
That is subtle.
Yeah, but it's really don't underestimate that. That's very powerful yoga.
That you're disengaging, or you're always
it's disengaging, but it's disengaging without disengaging.
In a way, it seems more like it's completely engaging.
Yeah, it's more completely engaging because you're not taking sides.
Yeah, when I
and you're not taking sides, even with the fact that you're taking sides.
Yeah, when I have resistance, I have a tendency to distance myself from that because I'm like this.
Yeah.
But if I actually go toward that and embrace that, it becomes, part of the flow of everything.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's much easier to manage.
Yeah. You can find a point of neutrality even when you're completely unneutral about everything. You can be completely biased and completely struggling with everything, and you can find a point of neutrality with the fact that that is the case. And again, you may even not like that that's the case, but that is the case. And you get to a point, and that it's real, that it's the case, is really a kind of neutrality. It's just like, well, there you go, there it is. Pretty fucking weird.
It's kind of like judgment. You're being judgmental.
Yeah.
And being judgmental puts you in a position.
Yeah.
The position is
exactly. And then you can be judgmental about the fact that you're being judgmental or not, and you can be judgmental about that. But ultimately, you get to a point where, but that's just how it is. Yeah, I'm doing all that stuff. And in that, it's like as soon as you get to that, yep, how it is, it's all of a sudden it's balanced, it's neutral, it's even. Even though the whole thing in here is doing like this.
It seems to me that dropping judgment in as much as you can is, for me, a clear way of noticing, or of approaching noticing.
Yeah.
You can't notice if you're judging.
Right. But see, what we're
dropping the judgment doesn't mean that you're going to notice. But you can't.
What we're talking about here, though, is bypassing that whole thing without even dropping the judgment.
Yeah.
It's just noticing the judgment, but it's in a sense not judging that.
It's like such and such is happening, and I hate it, and maybe I hate that I hate it.
Yeah.
But you keep stepping back, and you get to a point where, that's pretty much the whole shooting match. That's what's happening here, all right. And in that, all of a sudden, there's an ease. So you actually get to the ease you get to freedom from judgment without needing to not be judgmental.
It seems like you're going to be, I'm going to be, whatever, judgmental, no matter what.
Of course.
An ignorant, arrogant person.
Of course. Who isn't?
Bad perceptions, can't perceive properly, and can't interpret properly.
Sure.
And it's really hopeless. And
Yeah.
that's good.
Totally.
And
Exactly.
then there's a feeling, I think, of the neutrality, because you know you're fucked.
Yeah, exactly. You're fucked, but hey, what's new?
I mean, you're really fucked.
Yeah.
You're never going to make any progress, you're never going to do anything.
Oh, yeah.
And that seems
Yeah,
like,
and boy, that's a load off.
haven't gone anywhere.
They've done that, takes it off the host.
When you're talking, you seem to be talking about something, and for me, it's more like a neutral thing. It's like, what happens, like you seem to be saying something, and then whatever's happening here seems different, and it's fine, and it's like more like emptiness than, it's great. All right.
Yeah. It's all right, for sure, it's all right, yeah. I mean, that's really the fundamental message. It's really all right. This is all right. It can't not be all right. No matter how un-all right it is, even that's all right. We're going to hell in a handbasket, and we're all pathetic jerks, and it's all right. Yeah. We try and hang out.
I kept hearing it's Neil Young's song, if you can't be with the one you love the one you with. Right? So you want it to be something else, but it's what we're at, that's it. Ease is there.
Yeah, that's exactly. Ease is always here, no matter how uneasy you are. You can be easy about the fact that you're uneasy, because
Yeah, and it seems like there's no end to being a damn fool.
Not that I've seen. It doesn't seem to be in the cards.
Not to me? What's not in the cards?
Oh, having an end to being a damn fool.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely not.
And even if it happened, I'd probably be too much of a fool to notice it, to recognize that it happened and appreciate it. So.
Even in terms of any type of interpretive.
Well, if there's an end to, if there was an end to being a damn fool, I probably wouldn't even notice it because I'm such a fool.
That's being a really good fool.
A congruent fool.
So when you're not in the state of noticing,
Mm-hmm.
you're here.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a difference, a clear difference between the perfection or the beauty of noticing and being here.
Really?
I think so.
Well, what is here? Where is here?
Maybe it's because of maybe it has to do with how I've trained myself to see being here.
Hmm.
Is that different from the noticing?
Yeah, and to be easy with it. Don't worry. Don't be too heavy-handed with it. You just sort of. So yeah, I'm here. Okay, and what exactly does that mean?
So when I
And if you answer that question real well, you discover you're noticing.
brings you out.
In actual fact, there's nothing but noticing. Experience is noticing. And noticing is noticing that fact. So it's all very subtle and paradoxical and self-referential and so on. But noticing is nothing other than noticing how amazing experience is. And experience is constantly noticing how amazing it is. Because that's what experience is.
And so to be able to merge that with being here.
Well, it's a trick. It's not even emerging. It's just ultimately it's just a noticing that, yeah, that's how it is. This is it. It's always true that this is it. Whether whatever you're qualifying it as. How can you prove noticing is noticing? How can you prove not noticing is not noticing? These are all little tricks that pulls the rug out from under you. And that's all it's about, is pulling. There's no rug under you. So quit pretending there is. And if there seems to be one, pull it out. I love this room.
This week, it seems like all the icons are more,
Active.
they're participating.
They're more active tonight, it seems.
Yeah, they seem like they're really activated.
After effective Shiva Ratri, no doubt.
Shiva Ratri.
Is that tonight?
Yeah.
A couple nights ago.
Big merit. They're all catching on.
Here, I thought it was just it loving to hear itself talk about itself.
That is Shiva Ratri.
Yeah, we went to Shiva Ratri, and then I always liked Shiva Ratri, but this time it just really seemed like that's the core of everything. You know, the destruction, the creation.
This is it. Yeah. That's what we got here.
I've been finding I'm a lot less interested in almost everything, as it goes along now. Less passion, less for going to Shiva Ratri or doing things or, a lot of things actually.
I hear you. I have a couple of things I'm really interested in. Everything else is like,
I have some good friends ask, how are you doing? Well, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. It's like you have that same kind of that life in you, that kind of, well, I don't know, maybe feel depressed, I don't know. I don't know, maybe transition, I don't know, I just don't feel like much. But it's okay, it's all right, don't worry about it, don't worry about me.
Well, it's about quitting time. Thank you all very much for coming. It's a pleasure seeing and being with you. And have a lovely, whatever you have.
Close to Shiva Ratri.
Have a lovely, whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.